The prince was forced to marry an overweight woman, but when he saw what she did for his mother, he broke down in tears. The golden afternoon sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of the throne room, casting rainbow patterns across the marble floor of Golden Valley's royal palace. Despite the beautiful display, the atmosphere inside was anything but cheerful. Crown Prince William stood rigid before his father's throne, his jaw clenched so tightly that a muscle twitched visibly beneath his clean-shaven cheek. "You can't be serious, father." His voice remained controlled, though barely. "Lady Emily Watson, the woman is your future bride," King Richard interrupted, his voice weaker than it had been in years past, but still carrying the unmistakable weight of royal command. The king shifted in his throne, and William noticed how the heavy crown seemed to sink lower on his father's brow each day. "The arrangements have been made. You will wed within the month." William's blue eyes, so like his father's in their piercing clarity, narrowed. "Is this some kind of test? The court barely acknowledges her existence, and you expect me to make her my queen?" The grand throne room fell silent. Courtiers who had been pretending not to eavesdrop now abandoned any pretense, their hungry eyes fixed on the royal confrontation. William was acutely aware of their stares, the vultures of court, always circling for the next morsel of gossip. "You speak of her as if she's beneath you," said the king, leaning forward despite the obvious pain it caused him. "Perhaps that is precisely why you need her as your wife." Queen Elizabeth, seated in a smaller throne beside her husband, placed a delicate hand on the king's arm. "Richard, perhaps we should discuss this privately with William." Her voice was soft, almost ethereal, and William felt a familiar pang of concern at how frail his mother looked. Her once vibrant face had grown pale and thin over the past months, her illness consuming her from within. Despite the best efforts of the royal physicians, the king covered her hand with his own, his expression softening momentarily. "The decision is made, my love. May I be excused, your majesties?" William asked, struggling to maintain his composure, with a dismissive wave from his father. William bowed stiffly and strode from the throne room, his ceremonial cape billowing behind him. The whispers erupted the moment he passed through the massive oak doors. "She's positively bovine," snickered Lady Henrietta, one of the younger ladies of court, as Emily Watson passed by the courtyard fountain. "Can you imagine her in a wedding gown? She'll need twice the silk of any normal bride." Emily kept her gaze fixed ahead, pretending not to hear. At 23, she had long ago learned that acknowledging the barbs only encouraged more. Her full figure had been the subject of court ridicule since her arrival 2 years ago, along with whispered speculation about her humble origins, despite her noble title. "I hear the prince nearly collapsed when the king told him," added another lady, not bothering to lower her voice. "Poor William. First his mother's illness, and now this forced marriage to a commoner in disguise." Emily's hands tightened around the small basket of herbs she carried, but her face remained impassive. They knew nothing about her, not her true origins, nor the knowledge she carried. Let them mock her appearance. There were far more important matters requiring her attention. She made her way through the lesser-used corridors of the palace until she reached the royal gardens, glancing carefully around to ensure she was alone. Emily slipped behind a large topiary and entered a small wooden gate concealed by climbing roses. Beyond lay her sanctuary, a small herb garden the previous queen had planted generations ago, now forgotten by all except Emily and the oldest gardeners. As she knelt to tend the rare varieties of healing herbs, Emily allowed herself to breathe freely for the first time that day. The garden's earthy scents calmed her nerves as she considered the shocking news that had swept through the palace. Her, married to Prince William. The very idea was absurd. The handsome prince barely acknowledged her existence, his attention always focused on that golden-haired beauty, Amber Collins. Speaking of which, Emily froze as voices drifted over the garden wall. One was unmistakably the prince's rich baritone. The other, light and musical, belonged to Amber. "It's outrageous," William was saying. "Father knows my feelings for you, yet he insists on this farce of a marriage. Perhaps the king will change his mind," Amber replied, her voice sweet as honey. After all, what could he possibly see in her? "She's nothing but a charity case your mother took pity on." Emily remained motionless, hardly daring to breathe. "I won't do it," William declared. I'll find a way out of this. I swear it, Amber. You're the only woman I could ever love." Their voices faded as they moved away, but Emily remained kneeling among the herbs, her cheeks burning with humiliation. She had never harbored any illusions about the prince's feelings, but hearing his disdain spoken so plainly still stung. In her private chambers, the Duchess of Clearwater paced the richly appointed room, her silk skirts swishing with each agitated step. The king's sister was still a striking woman at 50, her auburn hair only lightly streaked with silver and her posture as regal as ever. "This changes everything," she muttered to herself. "The fool is going to ruin decades of planning with this ridiculous match." She strode to an ornate wooden chest, unlocked it with a key she wore around her neck, and reached inside to remove a small velvet pouch. From it, she extracted a golden medallion bearing the insignia of Darkshore, Golden Valley's bitter enemy for generations. The Duchess clutched the medallion tightly, her mind racing. 20 years of careful manipulation, of playing both sides, all threatened by her brother's sudden decree. If the prince married Emily Watson, everything would unravel. The girl was too observant, too clever by half. She might discover what even the king himself didn't know. The truth about the babe switched at birth, about the real heritage of certain members of court. A knock at the door startled her. Quickly returning the medallion to its hiding place, the Duchess composed herself. "Enter," she called. A servant appeared with a silver tray. "Your tea, Your Grace." "Place it by the window," she instructed. After the servant departed, the Duchess added a small vial of clear liquid to the second cup, the one she would soon take to her ailing sister-in-law. The Queen that evening, Queen Elizabeth sat propped against embroidered pillows in her royal bedchamber, her lady's maid arranging a dinner tray before her. Though the Queen made a valiant effort, she could manage only a few small bites before setting down her fork with a trembling hand. "Your Majesty should try to eat more," urged the maid. The royal physician was most insistent. "The royal physician has been most insistent for months, yet my condition only worsens," Elizabeth replied with a weak smile. "Tell me, is it true what I've heard about my son and Lady Emily?" "Yes, Your Majesty. The king has announced the betrothal. The court speaks of little else." The Queen's blue eyes, so like her son's, took on a distant look. "Interesting. I've watched that young woman, you know. There's more to her than meets the eye." Before the maid could respond, the chamber door opened to admit the Duchess of Clearwater, bearing a steaming cup of tea. "Sister," Elizabeth greeted her with genuine warmth. "You needn't trouble yourself bringing me tea." "Nonsense," replied the Duchess, setting the cup on the bedside table. "It's a special blend to help you sleep. I insist you drink it while it's hot." As the Queen reached for the cup, her gaze caught something unusual in her sister-in-law's eyes. A flash of something cold and calculating that disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. The Queen paused, her hand hovering over the cup. "Actually, I think I'll wait until it cools a bit. Tell me, what do you think of Richard's choice for William's bride?" The Duchess's smile never reached her eyes. A most unexpected selection. But I'm sure the king has his reasons. Outside in the corridor, Emily Watson passed by with fresh linens for the royal chambers, hearing just enough of the conversation to wonder why the Duchess's voice contained such barely concealed venom when discussing the impending royal wedding. The Duchess of Clearwater glided through the dimly lit corridors of the East Wing, her footsteps nearly silent against the stone floor. This section of the palace was rarely frequented after nightfall, making it perfect for clandestine meetings. She paused at an alcove housing a marble bust of some long-forgotten monarch, checking that she wasn't followed before slipping behind a tapestry depicting the founding of Golden Valley. Behind the heavy fabric lay a narrow passageway. The Duchess produced a small brass key from her sleeve and unlocked the hidden door at the end of the corridor. The room beyond was small but elegantly appointed, a secret chamber known only to her and the few trusted servants who maintained it. "You're late," a male voice greeted her. The man seated at the small writing desk was dressed in nondescript brown clothing, but his bearing suggested someone accustomed to authority. His face remained partially shadowed, though a scar running along his jaw caught the candlelight. "The Queen required more of my attention than expected," the Duchess replied, removing her outer cloak. "She's growing suspicious. Twice now she's refused the tea I bring her." "Then find another method," the man said coldly. "Our timeline cannot change. The royal wedding announcement has already thrown our plans into chaos." The Duchess reached for the medallion around her neck, the one bearing the insignia of Darkshore. 20 years of planning, and my fool brother threatens everything with this sudden marriage decree. She paced the small room. The girl must not marry William. Which girl concerns you more? The man asked, a hint of mockery in his voice. The one who thinks she's a nobody, or the one pretending to be? Both, in different ways. Amber has William wrapped around her finger, but she's growing careless. And this Emily, there's something about her that unsettles me. She watches everything, says little, and she spends entirely too much time with the Queen. Perhaps both problems could be solved at once, the man suggested, rising from the desk. Accidents befall young women all the time. The Duchess considered this. No, not yet. Emily's death before the wedding would raise too many questions, and eliminating Amber would devastate the prince, potentially driving him closer to his arranged bride out of sheer stubbornness. She approached a small chest on the table, opening it to reveal several sealed letters bearing the royal crest of Darkshore. Our friends across the border grow impatient. They expected their asset to be in position by now, not competing with some unexpected bride. Then we must ensure the wedding never happens, the man stated simply. I'll make arrangements to discredit the girl. Perhaps evidence of treasonous correspondence. The Duchess smiled coldly. Yes, let my brother believe his chosen bride is a spy. The irony would be most satisfying. Emily knelt in the royal gardens just as dawn broke over the eastern mountains. The morning dew soaked through the fabric of her simple work dress. But she paid it no mind as she carefully harvested the herbs that grew best in early morning light. Yarrow for fever, chamomile for calming, rosemary for memory, she whispered to herself, an old habit from her childhood when her adoptive mother had first taught her about medicinal plants. A rustling sound caused her to look up. Through the morning mist, she spotted Amber Collins and her mother, Lady Collins, hurrying along the garden path toward the Queen's chambers. Emily instinctively shrank back behind a tall rosebush. There was something about Lady Collins that had always made her uneasy, a calculating look behind her perpetual smile. As one of the Queen's ladies-in-waiting, Lady Collins had unlimited access to the royal chambers. Emily had noticed months ago that the Queen's health seemed to deteriorate most rapidly after Lady Collins's private visits. A coincidence, perhaps, but Emily's grandmother had taught her to be wary of coincidences. You're certain the Queen will see us this early? Amber was asking, her voice carrying clearly in the still morning air. Her Majesty specifically requested an early visit, Lady Collins replied, and it's never too early to remind her of your devotion to the royal family, especially with this ludicrous betrothal announcement. We must ensure the Queen knows where your heart truly lies. With William, Amber stated firmly. Always with William. Emily remained motionless until they had passed, then quietly gathered her herbs and made her way to the servants' entrance of the palace. The kitchens were already busy with morning preparations, and no one paid her much mind as she slipped through to the narrow staircase leading to her small room in the servants' quarters. Once inside, she locked her door and moved aside the heavy wooden chest at the foot of her bed. Beneath it was a loose floorboard, under which she kept her most precious possession, a worn leather-bound book of herbal remedies, its cover embossed with the royal seal of Golden Valley. Emily ran her fingers over the emblem, a familiar gesture that always brought both comfort and confusion. Her adoptive mother had given her the book on her deathbed, making Emily promise to guard it with her life and never show it to anyone. It is your birthright, the old woman had whispered. One day, you will understand. She had yet to understand what a common herbalist's daughter would have to do with a book bearing the royal seal, but the remedies within had proven invaluable. Emily carefully added today's fresh herbs to her collection and began grinding some for a tonic she had been preparing for the Queen. The commoners grow restless with this foreign war tax, Lord Bentley reported to the Royal Council. There have been small demonstrations in the lower city. William struggled to focus on the council meeting. His mind kept drifting to his father's outrageous demand and to his last conversation with Amber, who had been notably absent from court since the betrothal announcement. The Duchess of Clearwater, seated across from William at the massive oak table, spoke up. Perhaps if the prince showed more interest in matters of state than in garden dalliances, the people would feel more secure about our leadership. William stiffened. I assure you, Aunt, I am fully engaged with matters of state. Indeed, The Duchess raised an eyebrow. Then you must have valuable insights into why your father chose Lady Emily as your bride. The court is quite curious. Several council members exchanged uncomfortable glances. The king wasn't present. His health had prevented his attendance this morning, leaving the council under the joint leadership of the prince and the duchess. My father's decisions are his own, William replied tightly. As are mine. The duchess smiled thinly. Yet as prince, your decisions must align with the kingdom's interests. I merely wonder if a girl of such obscure lineage brings the diplomatic advantages one typically expects from a royal marriage. I wasn't aware we were discussing my betrothal, William countered. I thought we were addressing the tax situation. Lord Kensington cleared his throat. Perhaps a royal tour of the provinces would help calm the public's concerns, both about taxes and about future leadership. William recognized the olive branch and seized it. An excellent suggestion. I can depart within the week. And will your betrothed accompany you? The Duchess inquired, her tone innocent, though her eyes were sharp. The people would surely want to meet their future queen. Before William could respond, the chamber doors burst open and a royal guard entered with urgency. Your Highness, the queen has collapsed. The royal physician requests your immediate presence. William bolted from his chair, all thoughts of council business forgotten. As he rushed from the chamber, he failed to notice the brief, satisfied smile that crossed his aunt's face before she too rose to follow. Emily hurried through the servants' passageway, her heart pounding. Word of the queen's collapse had spread through the palace like wildfire, and she clutched her satchel of remedies tightly against her side. She had been preparing a special tonic for the queen's mysterious ailment for weeks now, carefully adjusting the formula as she observed the progression of symptoms. The corridor outside the royal bedchamber was crowded with concerned courtiers and servants. All speaking in hushed, worried tones, Emily kept her head down as she approached, knowing that drawing attention to herself would only result in dismissal. She wasn't officially a healer, merely a lady-in-waiting of the lowest rank, tolerated because of the queen's inexplicable fondness for her. "Make way for the prince!" a guard's voice boomed, and the crowd parted as Prince William strode down the hallway, his face tight with concern. Emily pressed herself against the wall as he passed. For a brief moment, their eyes met. William's gaze, usually filled with indifference or thinly veiled disdain when directed at her, now showed only fear for his mother. He swept past without acknowledgement, disappearing into the queen's chambers. Taking advantage of the distraction his arrival had caused, Emily slipped around to the servants' entrance of the royal suite. Inside, she found chaos. Maids scurrying about with fresh linens, the royal physician barking orders, and Lady Collins hovering near the bedside with a concerned expression that didn't quite reach her eyes. The queen lay pale and still against her pillows, her breathing shallow. King Richard sat beside her, his large hand engulfing his wife's delicate one, his crown discarded on a nearby table. Despite his own illness, he appeared to have momentarily regained his strength in his concern for his beloved. "We've tried everything, Your Majesty," the royal physician was explaining. "The queen's symptoms defy conventional treatment." "Then try unconventional methods," the king growled. "I don't care what it takes." Emily hesitated in the shadows. Gathering her courage, what she was about to do could result in her dismissal from court, or worse. But the queen's life hung in the balance, and Emily had begun to suspect that this was no ordinary illness. "Excuse me, Your Majesty," she said softly, stepping forward with a deep curtsy. "I may be able to help." All eyes turned to her. The physician frowned. "This is no place for a servant girl." "I'm aware of Lady Emily's presence," the king said, surprising everyone. "Let her speak." Emily approached cautiously, aware of William's skeptical gaze following her movements. "Your Majesty, I've been observing the queen's symptoms for some time. With your permission, I'd like to try a tonic I've prepared." "And what qualifies you to treat the queen when my own physicians are baffled?" William demanded. Emily met his eyes steadily. "My grandmother was a healer in the northern provinces. She taught me the old ways of medicine before she died. A village witch." "You mean?" Lady Collins murmured, just loud enough to be heard. The king ignored the comment. "What do you suspect, Lady Emily?" Emily chose her words carefully. "The queen's symptoms are consistent with certain types of slow poisoning." A shocked silence fell over the room. William stepped forward. "That's a serious accusation." "It's not an accusation, Your Highness," Emily clarified. "Merely a medical observation. Some naturally occurring substances can cause similar effects if consumed regularly over time. It could be in something the Queen eats or drinks daily." The king's expression darkened. "And your tonic?" "It's a gentle detoxification remedy, Your Majesty. It won't harm her, even if my suspicions are incorrect." After a moment's consideration, the king nodded. "Proceed." Emily drew a small vial from her satchel and carefully administered 3 drops to the Queen's lips. Then she placed a cool compress infused with healing herbs on her forehead. "She'll need this 3 times daily," Emily explained, "and her food and drink should be carefully monitored." The royal physician huffed. "This is highly irregular, as is the Queen's illness," the king countered. "We will try Lady Emily's remedy, and from now on, the Queen's meals will be prepared separately and tasted before serving." Emily felt William's eyes on her, his expression unreadable. As she curtsied and turned to leave, the prince followed her into the antechamber. "Where did you learn to recognize poisoning?" he asked abruptly. Emily hesitated. "In the villages, Your Highness. I sometimes offer medical assistance to those who cannot afford physicians." William's eyebrows rose. "You leave the palace to treat commoners." "When I can," she admitted. "There's much suffering that goes unseen from the palace windows." Something shifted in the prince's expression. Surprise, perhaps, or reassessment. Before he could respond, a commotion from the Queen's chamber drew his attention, and he rushed back inside. Through the doorway, Emily could see the Queen's eyes fluttering open, her color already improving slightly. Emily quietly slipped away, knowing her presence would soon raise more questions than she was prepared to answer. That evening, Emily made her way through the darkened streets of the lower city, a hooded cloak concealing her identity. The cobblestones were slick from recent rain, and the smell of damp wood and cooking fires filled the air. This was a different world from the palace, grimmier, louder, more honest in its hardships. She stopped at a small cottage with a faded red door, knocking twice. Then once more, a signal, the door opened to reveal an elderly woman with kind eyes and gnarled hands. "Back again so soon, my lady," the woman whispered, ushering Emily inside. "The need is great, Martha," Emily replied, removing her hood. "How is the child?" Martha led her to a small bedroom where a young boy slept fitfully, his brow dotted with sweat. "The fever broke this afternoon, but he's still weak." Emily examined the child, checking his pulse and breathing. "The willow bark tea is working. Continue giving it to him every 4 hours." She reached into her satchel and produced a small jar. "This salve will help with the chest congestion. Rub it in thoroughly before he sleeps." As Martha accepted the medicine gratefully, other residents of the small house gathered in the doorway, all patients Emily had treated over the past months. "We heard the news from the palace," an older man said. "They're saying the prince is to marry some noble lady." Emily's cheeks flushed. "Yes," the man chuckled. "Poor girl, whoever she is, having to marry that one. Never spares a glance for his own people, that prince. He has many responsibilities," Emily said diplomatically. "So they say," Martha replied skeptically. "Yet here you are, a lady of court, tending to the sick when those with far more power do nothing." Emily changed the subject. "I've brought bread and cheese as well, and I need to check on Mrs. Fletcher's baby before I return." As she completed her rounds in the lower city, Emily was unaware of the hooded figure watching her from the shadows, one of the Duchess of Clearwater's trusted spies, cataloging her every movement and interaction. Back in her small palace chamber later that night, Emily carefully removed the royal herbal book from its hiding place. The golden emblem on its cover gleamed in the candlelight as she turned to a section on poisons and antidotes. The symptoms described for arsenic poisoning matched the Queen's condition perfectly. Emily's fingers trembled as she read further, learning that continued exposure could be fatal within months if untreated. She closed the book with a troubled sigh, returning it to its hiding place beneath the floorboard. The question wasn't just what was poisoning the Queen, but who and why, and in a palace full of ambition and deceit that made the list of suspects dangerously long. A week after Emily began her treatment, Queen Elizabeth showed remarkable improvement. Her complexion regained its color, and she could sit up in bed for longer periods. The king, though publicly maintaining his stoic demeanor, had privately expressed his gratitude to Emily, ensuring her continued access to the royal chambers. Despite the royal physician's objections, Emily knew, however, that her tonic was merely slowing the poison's effects, not eliminating it completely. For a true cure, she needed an herb that grew only on the treacherous mountains bordering Dark Shore. Bloodroot, with its distinctive crimson sap and powerful purifying properties. Before dawn, she slipped into her small chamber and began packing essentials: dried provisions, a change of clothes, her small dagger, and most importantly, her mortar and collection vials. She was so focused on her preparations that she failed to notice her door quietly opening behind her. "Planning a journey, Lady Emily." She whirled around to find Prince William leaning against her doorframe, his arms crossed. In the dim light, his expression was unreadable, but his tone carried no mockery for once. Emily dropped into a hurried curtsy. "Your Highness, I didn't hear you." Evidently, his eyes scanned her preparations. "It's interesting that on the eve of our official engagement ceremony, my betrothed appears to be packing for a trip." Emily flushed. She had nearly forgotten about the ceremony scheduled for the following evening, a formal event where they would exchange ritual promises before the court. Not that the prince had shown any interest in discussing it with her. "It's not what it seems," she said carefully. William raised an eyebrow. "No, because it seems like you're sneaking away before dawn on a clandestine journey. Most would consider that quite insulting to their future husband." Emily straightened her shoulders. "Your mother's condition has stabilized, but she's not cured. The herb I need for her complete recovery grows only in the Eastern Mountains." "The Eastern Mountains," William's voice sharpened. "That's disputed territory. Bandits control the passes, and Darkshore patrols often cross the border there. I'm aware of the risks." William stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind him. "You're willing to risk your life to gather herbs for my mother, the same mother of the prince who's made no secret of his disdain for your arranged marriage?" Emily met his gaze. "Your feelings toward me are irrelevant, Your Highness. The Queen has always been kind to me, and I won't let her die if I can prevent it." Something flickered in William's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or reluctant respect. "And if I forbid you to go, then I will have to disobey you, Your Highness." She continued packing. "You may punish me upon my return." William was silent for a long moment, studying her with new interest. Finally, he sighed. "You truly believe this herb will save her?" "I do. It's called bloodroot. Its properties counteract the specific poison I believe is being used." "Being used," William repeated. "You still maintain someone is deliberately poisoning my mother?" Emily hesitated. "The evidence suggests it. The toxin appears in her system after specific visitors attend her." "Which visitors?" I'm not certain yet," Emily lied, unwilling to make accusations without absolute proof. William paced the small room, his brow furrowed in thought. Finally, he turned to her. "I should send royal guards to collect this herb. They wouldn't know what to look for," Emily countered. "Bloodroot is easily confused with several similar species, some of which are deadly poisonous themselves. I need to identify it personally." The prince ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "This is madness. You're a court lady, not a mountain explorer. I'm more capable than you imagine." "Your Highness." William studied her for another moment before making his decision. "Very well, you may go." Emily blinked in surprise. "Thank you. But," he interrupted, "I'll be sending 2 of my personal guards to shadow you at a distance. They won't interfere unless you're in danger." Emily wanted to object, but recognized the compromise for what it was. "As you wish. You have 3 days," William added. "Return by sunset on the 3rd day, or I'll send a search party and explain to the entire court why my betrothed vanished before our engagement ceremony." "I understand." William turned to leave but paused at the door. "Lady Emily, be careful." The genuine concern in his voice surprised her more than his discovery of her plans. 2 hours later, Emily rode through the eastern gates of the city, her hood pulled low over her face. The guards William had assigned, Burke and Fletcher, 2 of his most trusted men, followed at a discreet distance. Disguised as ordinary travelers, the path to the eastern mountains was initially easy, winding through fertile farmlands where peasants were already at work in the fields. But by midday, the terrain grew rougher, the road narrowing as it began its ascent into the foothills. Emily stopped at a small stream to rest her horse and consult the crude map she'd drawn based on her herbal texts. According to her research, bloodroot grew primarily near mountain springs at specific elevations, requiring both shade and moisture to thrive. As she remounted, a snap of twigs in the nearby thicket alerted her. Emily tensed, her hand moving to the dagger concealed in her boot. 3 rough-looking men emerged from the trees, blocking her path. "Well, what have we here?" The leader grinned, revealing several missing teeth. "A fine lady out for a country ride." Emily assessed her options quickly. Burke and Fletcher were too far back to help immediately, and outrunning the men on the narrow mountain path would be difficult. "I'm a healer gathering herbs," she said calmly. "I have nothing of value." "That's a mighty fine horse for a simple healer," one of the men observed, approaching her mount. "And those clothes, though plain, are of quality make." The leader drew closer. "Search her bags, gently now. We're gentlemen." After all, his laughter suggested otherwise. As the third man reached for her saddlebag, Emily's hand dipped into her pocket, extracting a small pouch. When he was within arm's reach, she flung its contents into his face. A powder made from dried nettles and sneezing weed. The man howled, staggering backward as his face erupted in an instant rash and his eyes watered uncontrollably. Taking advantage of the momentary confusion, Emily kicked her horse into motion, charging directly at the leader. Surprised by her audacity, he stumbled aside, but not before grabbing at her reins. Emily was ready. The small dagger appeared in her hand, slashing across his forearm. He yelped and released the leather straps. She galloped past, but the third bandit managed to grab her cloak, nearly pulling her from the saddle. Emily twisted, revealing a second pouch that she smashed directly into his face. This one contained a paralyzing compound that immediately numbed his facial muscles and sent him crashing to the ground. By now, Burke and Fletcher had spotted the commotion and were racing toward her. Swords drawn, the bandits, faced with armed reinforcements, and already bested by a woman they'd underestimated, fled into the woods. Emily slowed her horse, her heart pounding. The royal guards reached her, their expressions a mix of concern and astonishment. "Are you injured, my lady?" Burke asked, scanning her for wounds. "I'm fine," she assured them, tucking her dagger away. "We should continue. There may be more bandits nearby." Fletcher stared at her with newfound respect. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Emily's expression revealed nothing. A woman alone must know how to protect herself. The guards exchanged glances but asked no more questions as they continued their journey. By nightfall, they had reached the border territory, a contested region where neither Golden Valley nor Dark Shore maintained a constant presence. Emily insisted on continuing despite the growing darkness, knowing the bloodroot would be easier to locate by the light of the full moon, when its white flowers glowed with an almost ethereal luminescence. Near midnight, they reached a high mountain pass patrolled by Dark Shore guards. Emily instructed Burke and Fletcher to wait while she approached alone, her hood concealing her features. To the royal guards' astonishment, the Dark Shore soldiers stiffened to attention when Emily showed them a small token, an unremarkable river stone with curious markings. Without a word, they allowed her to pass, bowing their heads slightly as she did, from their hidden position. Burke and Fletcher watched in confusion. Who was this woman? Their prince was to marry, and why did enemy soldiers treat her with such deference? William paced the length of his private study, pausing occasionally to glance out the window toward the eastern mountains. 2 days had passed since Emily left on her dangerous quest, and despite himself, he found his thoughts repeatedly returning to her. The formal engagement ceremony had been postponed due to the Queen's relapse, a convenient excuse he had arranged to explain his betrothed's absence. "Your Highness," a soft voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned to find Amber standing in the doorway, more beautiful than ever in a gown of pale blue silk that matched her eyes. Her golden hair fell in perfect waves around her shoulders, and for a moment, William felt the familiar rush of desire her presence always evoked. "Amber," he said, his voice softening. "I was beginning to think you were avoiding me." She glided into the room, closing the door behind her. "Mother thought it would be inappropriate for us to be seen together after your betrothal announcement." She spat the word as if it tasted bitter. "But I couldn't stay away any longer." William took her hands in his. "Nothing has changed between us. This arranged marriage is merely politics, but she'll be your wife." Amber's lower lip trembled perfectly. "Your queen, in name only," William assured her, pulling her closer. "My heart belongs to you. It always has." Amber melted against him, her arms encircling his neck. "Prove it," she whispered against his lips. Later, as they lay entwined on the chaise by the fire, Amber traced lazy patterns on William's chest. "I've heard rumors that your bride-to-be has vanished. The servants whisper she's fled before the ceremony." William tensed slightly. "She's attending to a personal matter with my permission. She'll return tomorrow." Amber pouted. "So you still intend to go through with it?" "My father leaves me no choice," William sighed. "But once he passes..." He stopped himself, ashamed of speaking so pragmatically about his father's declining health. "Once you're king," Amber finished for him, "everything will be different." She rose from the chaise, wrapping herself in a discarded shawl. "I should go. Mother will be looking for me." William watched her dress, appreciating every graceful movement. As she reached for her necklace on the side table, her shawl slipped slightly, revealing a small birthmark on her left shoulder, a distinctive shape he had never noticed before. "What's that mark on your shoulder?" he asked casually. Amber quickly adjusted her shawl. "Just a birthmark. I've had it all my life." She bent to kiss him. "Until tomorrow, my love." After she left, William found himself strangely unsettled. Rising from the chaise, he moved to his desk where maps and reports from the border regions were spread out. One document caught his eye, a report he had requested on Darkshore's royal insignia for a military briefing. He stared at the drawing, then at the door through which Amber had departed. The shape was identical to the birthmark on her shoulder. Emily returned to the palace under cover of darkness on the third day, exactly as promised. Her journey had been successful. Tucked safely in her satchel was a small cloth bag containing the precious bloodroot, carefully preserved to maintain its potency. She was exhausted, her body aching from the hard ride and her face windburned from mountain exposure. But there was no time to rest. She made her way directly to the Queen's chambers, using the servants' passages to avoid detection. To her relief, she found Queen Elizabeth alone, except for a single sleeping maid. "Lady Emily," the Queen whispered, her eyes brightening. "You've returned," Emily curtsied. "Yes, Your Majesty, and I've brought something that will help you recover completely." She set to work immediately, preparing the bloodroot using the small brazier kept in the Queen's antechamber for warming tonics. The process was delicate. Too much heat would destroy the root's medicinal properties. Too little would fail to release them. "This smells familiar," the Queen remarked as the distinctive sweet earthy aroma filled the room. "My mother's garden had such plants, though I was forbidden to touch them." Emily measured the tincture carefully into a silver spoon. "This will taste bitter, Your Majesty, but it will purge the poison completely from your system." The Queen took the medicine without complaint, then settled back against her pillows. "The king tells me you risked much to obtain this cure." Her penetrating blue eyes studied Emily. "Why would you do that for me?" Emily hesitated, uncertain how to answer. "You've always shown me kindness, Your Majesty." "There's more than that," Elizabeth said softly. "Sometimes when I look at you, I see something familiar." She reached for Emily's hand. "Your mother. Your real mother. Not the woman who raised you. Who was she?" The question caught Emily off guard. I don't know, Your Majesty. I was told she died in childbirth." The Queen seemed about to say more when the door to her chamber opened, revealing Prince William. His eyes widened at the sight of Emily. "You're back," he stated, sounding relieved despite himself. "As promised, Your Highness," Emily replied with a curtsy. The Queen looked between them with interest. "William, would you escort Lady Emily to her chambers? She looks exhausted from her journey." In the corridor outside, William finally spoke. "Burke and Fletcher gave me their report. They were most impressed by your abilities." Emily tensed. "What exactly did they report?" "That you handled 3 bandits with skills no ordinary court lady should possess, and that Darkshore border guards showed you unusual respect." His voice hardened. "Care to explain?" "The bandits were simple thugs, easily surprised by a woman who fights back," she replied evenly. "As for the border guards, I simply showed them a healer's token. Many mountain villages recognize such emblems." William studied her face for signs of deception. "My guards also mentioned your expert knowledge of the mountains, as if you'd traveled there before. My grandmother's remedies came from those regions." She described the terrain in detail. They had reached her chamber door. William stopped, turning to face her directly. "I want to trust you, Lady Emily. You. I truly do. But there are too many mysteries surrounding you." Emily met his gaze. "We all have our secrets, Your Highness. Even you." His expression darkened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Only that perhaps you should examine those closest to you before questioning my loyalty." She opened her door. "If you'll excuse me, I need to rest before tomorrow's ceremony." William watched her disappear into her chamber, troubled by her words. Early the next morning, a commotion in the royal wing drew courtiers from their beds. The Queen, miraculously, was walking in the gardens, supported by the king but showing more strength than she had in months. William observed his mother's improvement with amazement and growing shame at his suspicions of Emily. He decided to make amends before the engagement ceremony that evening. On his way to her chamber, he passed Amber's rooms and was surprised to hear urgent whispers from within. Normally, he would have announced himself. But something, perhaps Emily's cryptic warning, made him pause and listen. "The Queen's recovery changes everything," Amber was saying. "We must move quickly." "Patience, daughter," came Lady Collins's voice. "The blood root may have cured the physical symptoms, but the Queen's mind will take longer to clear." "We still have time," William frowned. How did they know about the blood root? Emily had only just returned, and he had told no one of her mission. "The prince grows suspicious," Amber continued. "Yesterday he noticed my birthmark. Did he recognize it?" Lady Collins sounded alarmed. "I don't think so. But we can't risk waiting until after the wedding. Once she becomes his wife officially, our position is weakened." William had heard enough. He pushed open the door without knocking, startling both women. "What position would that be, Amber?" Amber recovered quickly, her expression transforming into one of delight. "William, I was just telling Mother how I wish to strengthen my position as your confidant before your political marriage." William said nothing, instead walking to her writing desk where several parchments lay scattered. Before Amber could stop him, he picked up one written in a cipher he recognized from military dispatches. Darkshore's secret code. "William, those are private poems," Amber protested, trying to snatch the parchment. In the struggle, her dress slipped from her shoulder, revealing the birthmark he had noticed the day before, in the morning light. Its resemblance to Darkshore's royal insignia was unmistakable. "You're a spy," he said quietly, his world crumbling around him. "All this time. William, please," Amber begged, her eyes filling with tears. "I love you. Whatever else you believe. No, that is true." But William was already backing toward the door, the coded message clutched in his hand. "Guards," he called, his voice hollow with betrayal. As royal guards rushed in to secure Amber and her mother, William felt a strange emptiness. The woman he had loved, or thought he loved, had been using him all along, and the woman he had been prepared to reject might have been trying to save his family. With a bitter taste in his mouth, he left to find Emily and offer her the apology she deserved. William's determined stride faltered as he approached Emily's chambers. The coded message from Amber's room felt heavy in his hand, evidence of betrayal so profound he could scarcely comprehend it. For years, he had shared his deepest thoughts, political insights, and royal secrets with the woman he believed loved him. How much damage had been done to Golden Valley because of his blindness? He raised his hand to knock on Emily's door, then hesitated. What exactly would he say? That he'd been wrong about her, that his suspicions had been misplaced. The irony was bitter. He had questioned Emily's loyalty while sharing his bed with a Darkshore spy. Before he could decide, a servant approached, bowing deeply. "Your Highness, the king requests your immediate presence in the royal study." William nodded curtly. His apology to Emily would have to wait. "Arrest Lady Emily Watson," the Duchess of Clearwater declared, her voice ringing with authority through the royal study. "She is a spy for Darkshore." William had entered the room to find his father seated behind his massive oak desk, looking more alert than he had in weeks, and his aunt standing imperiously beside him. The Duchess held a sheaf of papers in her gloved hands. "What nonsense is this?" William demanded. "Lady Emily just saved Mother's life," The Duchess smiled thinly. "A clever ploy to gain our trust." She placed the papers before the king. "These were found hidden in her chambers during a routine inspection." "You searched her rooms without authorization?" William asked incredulously. "I authorized it," the king said quietly. "Your aunt raised concerns about Lady Emily's mysterious journey to the eastern mountains." William turned to his father. "She went there to gather the bloodroot that cured Mother. Or so she claimed," the Duchess countered. "Yet these letters tell a different story." She gestured to the documents. "Correspondence with Darkshore agents, plans for infiltration, details about our defenses." "That's impossible," William insisted, though a flicker of doubt crept into his mind. He had just discovered Amber's treachery. Could he have been deceived again? "I want to see these letters." The Duchess handed him the papers. As William scanned them, his blood ran cold. They appeared authentic. Detailed reports about Golden Valley's military positions, signed with what looked like Emily's hand. Yet something felt wrong. "These could be forgeries," he said, though without conviction. "The handwriting has been verified by 3 court scribes," the Duchess replied smoothly. "And there's more." She produced a small medallion from her pocket, identical to the one William had glimpsed on Amber's shoulder. This was found beneath the floorboards in her room, along with a vial of poison similar to what was used on the Queen. The king's face hardened. "I wanted to believe in her. William, I chose her for you because I saw something special, a strength and compassion that reminded me of your mother. But the evidence is damning." William's mind raced. If Emily was truly a Darkshore agent, why heal the Queen? Why not let the poisoning continue? And the timing was too convenient. Immediately after he discovered Amber's treachery, his aunt produced evidence against Emily. "Father, I request time to investigate these claims personally," William said. "Amber Collins and her mother have also been implicated as Darkshore spies. Could this be an attempt to divert attention from them?" The Duchess laughed derisively. "Poor William. First your mistress, now your betrothed. Both traitors. How unfortunate that your judgment of character is so flawed." Something in her tone gave William pause. How did his aunt know about his relationship with Amber? He had been exceedingly discreet before he could pursue that thought. The king sighed heavily. "I've already issued the arrest order. Lady Emily will be detained pending a formal inquiry. And then execution for treason," the Duchess added coldly. William stared at his aunt, seeing something sinister in her satisfaction. "If she's guilty," he said pointedly. Emily knew something was wrong the moment the royal guards appeared at her door. Their faces were grim, their hands resting on sword hilts. "Lady Emily Watson," the captain announced formally. "By order of King Richard, you are under arrest for treason and conspiracy against the crown of Golden Valley." Emily felt the blood drain from her face. There must be some mistake. "No mistake. My lady, please come with us." As the guards escorted her through the palace corridors, courtiers and servants stopped to stare. Whispers followed in her wake. "Spy! Traitor! Darkshore agent!" Emily held her head high, though her heart pounded with fear and confusion. They led her not to the regular palace holding cells, but to the ancient dungeons beneath the East Wing, cells reserved for the most dangerous political prisoners. The stone walls were damp and cold, the only light coming from a narrow window set high in the wall. Once the heavy door clanged shut behind her, Emily sank onto the straw pallet, her mind reeling. She had been prepared for suspicion about her knowledge of medicines, even questions about her journey to the mountains. But treason, it made no sense unless... A chill ran through her as she remembered the book of herbs hidden beneath her floorboards, the one bearing the royal seal of Golden Valley. Had someone found it? Misinterpreted its significance. Hours passed in darkness and silence. Emily had just begun to doze when the cell door creaked open. She looked up, expecting guards, but instead found Prince William standing in the doorway, his face shadowed. "Your Highness," she whispered, rising quickly. William entered alone, dismissing the guards. In the flickering torchlight, his expression was unreadable. "They found Darkshore correspondence in your chamber. And this," he held up the medallion with the enemy kingdom's insignia. Emily stared at the objects in genuine shock. "Those aren't mine. I've never seen them before." "The letters bear your signature," William said flatly. "They detail our military positions. castle defenses, even my father's health. They're forgeries, Emily insisted. Someone is trying to frame me. William studied her face. Why would anyone do that? Because I discovered the queen was being poisoned, Emily said. Because I cured her. Because someone doesn't want our marriage to proceed. Someone like who? Emily hesitated, knowing the danger of accusing a royal family member without proof. I can't say without evidence. William stepped closer, his voice dropping. Did you find anything unusual in my mother's chambers? Any clue about who might have poisoned her? The poison was administered gradually, likely in her daily tea, Emily said carefully. Lady Collins often brought it to her. But so did several others, including your aunt. At the mention of his aunt, something flickered in William's eyes. The Duchess of Clearwater produced the evidence against you, he admitted. Quite conveniently after I discovered Amber's treachery. Hope flared in Emily's chest. You know about Amber. I found coded messages in her chambers this morning. She and her mother have been arrested as well. His voice was pained. I was coming to apologize to you when I was summoned to see my father, and found you accused instead. Emily reached for his hand impulsively. William, someone is manipulating events. My only crime is trying to help the Queen. William didn't pull away from her touch. There's something else, he said quietly. My guards reported that Darkshore border soldiers treated you with unusual deference. How do you explain that? Emily's face paled. This was the question she had dreaded, the one she couldn't answer without revealing secrets she herself didn't fully understand. I can't explain it, she said truthfully, but I swear to you, I am no traitor. William searched her eyes for a long moment. There's a book with the royal seal of Golden Valley hidden beneath your floorboards. Where did you get it? Emily's heart sank. So they had found it after all. It was my mother's, my adoptive mother. She gave it to me on her deathbed. I don't know how she obtained it. And you never thought to mention this. Would you have believed me? A commoner's daughter with a royal heirloom? William was silent, conflict evident in his expression. Finally, he stepped back. The evidence against you is substantial, but there are inconsistencies I can't ignore. I need time to investigate. Time is something I may not have, Emily said quietly. Your aunt seemed eager for my execution. You won't be executed without a full inquiry, William promised, and I will conduct that inquiry myself. He moved toward the door. In the meantime, tell no one about our conversation. Trust no one but me. As the cell door closed behind him, Emily whispered, I do trust you, William. I only hope you can learn to trust me. King Richard moved silently through the hidden passageway behind the royal library, a secret known only to reigning monarchs of Golden Valley. Despite his apparent frailty in public, he now walked with purpose, his steps sure in the dim light. For months, he had carefully orchestrated his illness, exaggerating symptoms to flush out conspirators in his court. The passage opened into a small chamber where his most trusted advisor, Lord Blackwood, awaited. Unlike the public royal council, this was the king's true inner circle, just two men who had served together since childhood. The game accelerates, Richard said, lowering himself into a chair. My sister has made her move against Lady Emily earlier than expected. Blackwood nodded grimly. She fears the girl, though I don't believe she knows exactly why. And what of the messenger we captured? The king asked. He's ready to testify. The evidence is irrefutable. The Duchess of Clearwater has been working with Darkshore for years. Blackwood handed him a sealed document. We've decoded the latest messages. The plan was for Amber Collins to seduce and marry William, creating a puppet monarchy once you were removed. Richard broke the seal and scanned the document, his expression hardening. And my sister's role, power behind the throne. Darkshore promised her autonomy over the northern provinces as reward. The king closed his eyes briefly. My own sister, all these years. There's more, Blackwood said hesitantly. About Lady Emily. Richard looked up sharply. You've confirmed it. Yes, the birthmarks match. The midwife's journal entries are clear. He produced a faded leather-bound book, and we found this. A letter from Queen Alara of Darkshore, written before her death. Richard took the letter with trembling hands. So it's true. Emily is not of Darkshore blood at all. No, Your Majesty. She is of Golden Valley's royal line. Your niece, daughter of your younger sister Vivienne. who was believed to have died without issue, and Amber, the true Darkshore princess, switched at birth as part of Queen Alara's peace plan. Blackwood's voice turned bitter, a plan sabotaged by nobles on both sides who preferred war to reconciliation. Richard stood, renewed purpose in his bearing. "Prepare the council chamber tonight. We reveal everything." In her cold cell, Emily huddled beneath the thin blanket provided by a sympathetic guard. Hours had passed since William's visit, and her initial hope had faded into anxiety. Would he find proof of her innocence? Or would the Duchess's machinations prove too effective? The sound of the cell door opening jolted her from her thoughts. Queen Elizabeth stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 guards. "Leave us," the Queen commanded, and the guards withdrew. Though they remained within sight, Emily dropped into a curtsy. "Your Majesty, you shouldn't be here." "Stand up, child," Elizabeth said gently. "We have much to discuss and little time." The Queen looked remarkably recovered. Though still frail, she carried a small wooden box, which she placed on the cell's single stool. The blood route worked well, Emily observed, professional assessment temporarily overriding her situation. "Yes, thanks to you." Elizabeth studied Emily's face with unusual intensity. "I've been having dreams since my recovery. Memories. Perhaps from 20 years ago, about 2 babies born on the same night." Emily stared at her, uncomprehending. "Your Majesty, one born to my husband's youngest sister, Princess Vivienne, the other to Queen Alara of Darkshore. Both girls, both with distinctive birthmarks." The Queen opened the box and removed a folded document. Vivienne's daughter had a mark like a small crescent moon beneath her right collarbone. "Do you have such a mark, Emily?" Emily's hand unconsciously moved to her chest. "Yes, but how could you know that?" "Because I attended both births as a gesture of goodwill. Both kingdoms hoped these children would one day unite our lands through marriage." Elizabeth's voice grew sad. But there were those who did not want peace. On the night of the christening, there was chaos. A fire in the nursery, in the confusion. The babies were switched. Emily felt her world tilting. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you are not Emily Watson, orphaned daughter of a village healer." The Queen handed her the document. "You are Princess Catherine of Golden Valley, rightful heir to the House of Silverwind, daughter of Princess Vivienne, niece to King Richard." Emily unfolded the document with shaking hands. It was a birth record, signed by the royal midwife, detailing the birth of Princess Catherine, complete with a description of the crescent moon birthmark. "This can't be," she whispered. "I was raised in a cottage at the edge of the forest by a woman who gathered herbs for healing. A loyal servant of Princess Vivienne, entrusted with your safety when it became clear someone had discovered the switch and wanted both children dead." Elizabeth touched Emily's cheek gently. "She raised you as her own, taught you her healing arts, and when she was dying, gave you the only proof of your heritage she possessed, a book bearing the royal seal." Emily thought of the herbal book, the way her adoptive mother had insisted she protect it with her life. The Duchess of Clearwater, she realized. She was behind it all. "My sister-in-law has always craved power," Elizabeth confirmed. She played both sides, using the confusion to her advantage. She helped orchestrate the switch, planning to reveal your true identity at a time most advantageous to her. And Amber, the true Darkshore princess, raised to believe she was a commoner's daughter, groomed to seduce William and infiltrate our court. The Queen's voice hardened. "Though I believe she grew to genuinely care for him, her loyalty remained with the mother who raised her." Emily struggled to process this revelation. "Does William know?" "Not yet. Richard is gathering the final pieces of evidence before making this public." Elizabeth clasped Emily's hands. "But I had to tell you first. You deserve to know who you truly are before facing the council." "Council," Emily echoed. "The king has called an emergency session tonight. The Duchess will present her case against you, unaware that Richard has been investigating her for months." Elizabeth's eyes gleamed. "My husband may appear frail, but his mind is as sharp as ever. He's been setting a trap, and tonight it closes." Emily barely heard the Queen's words, still reeling from the truth of her identity, Princess Catherine. Royalty by birth, the herbal knowledge passed down through generations of women in the royal line, the deference of the Darkshore guards who somehow recognized her despite never having seen her before. "If I'm truly who you say," Emily said slowly, "why would the king arrange my marriage to William? We would be cousins. Distant cousins, acceptable for royal unions, Elizabeth explained. And Richard suspected your identity but needed proof. The betrothal was partially a test to bring his sister's schemes into the open. And William, was he part of this test? Elizabeth's expression softened. No, my son's reaction to you was entirely his own. Richard hoped you would form a genuine attachment, but we couldn't force William's heart. Footsteps approached. The guards had returned. Your Majesty, the king requests Lady Emily's presence in the council chamber. Elizabeth stood. It's time. Catherine, Emily shook her head. I've been Emily my entire life. I can't simply become someone else in an instant. You don't have to, the Queen said kindly. But tonight, you must be brave enough to face the truth of your birth. She removed a small silver pin from her gown, a crescent moon set with pearls. This was your mother's. Wear it tonight. As the guards escorted them through the palace corridors, Emily, or Catherine, touched the pin at her collar. Whatever happened in the council chamber, nothing would ever be the same again. William waited tensely in the antechamber of the council room. His father had summoned the full royal council, the court's highest nobles and representatives from each province, an unprecedented gathering at such short notice. More baffling was his father's transformation. Gone was the frail, sickly king of recent months. In his place stood a commanding monarch, clear-eyed and resolute as he reviewed documents with his advisors. When the doors opened to admit the Queen and Emily, William moved toward them instinctively. Emily looked pale but composed, her simple prison dress replaced with a modest blue gown. His mother had clearly intervened in her appearance, though the guards still flanked her as a prisoner. Emily, he began, but his mother shook her head slightly. Not now, William. Everything will be explained inside. The Duchess of Clearwater arrived, resplendent in ceremonial robes as befitted her status. Her eyes narrowed at the sight of Emily outside the council chamber. The prisoner should not be dressed as a court lady, she snapped. It's an insult to her victims. She is dressed as befits her station, the Queen replied evenly. As we shall all see shortly. The Duchess's face tightened with suspicion, but before she could respond, the doors swung wide and the royal herald announced, His Majesty, King Richard of Golden Valley, summons the royal council to session. As they entered the grand chamber, William noticed something unusual. Royal guards stationed at every exit, their expressions vigilant. His father sat on the ceremonial throne, crown gleaming in the light of 100 candles, looking every inch the powerful ruler William remembered from his childhood. Tonight, the king began, his voice strong and clear, we uncover treason, reveal hidden truths, and reclaim what was lost to us 20 years ago. The Duchess stepped forward confidently. Indeed, brother. Justice for Golden Valley begins with the traitor before us. She pointed dramatically at Emily. This Darkshore spy who nearly destroyed our family. King Richard's smile was cold as winter. Yes, sister, justice indeed, but perhaps not as you expect. He nodded to the guards at the side door, who opened it to admit a bound prisoner. The messenger William had seen visiting his aunt's private chambers. The true story begins tonight, the king announced. With you. The council chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to the bound messenger. The man kept his head lowered, but William recognized him as the same shadowy figure he'd glimpsed leaving his aunt's chambers on multiple occasions. State your name and position for the council, the king commanded. The messenger raised his head. Nathaniel Graves, Royal Intelligence Officer of Darkshore. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The Duchess of Clearwater's face drained of color, though she quickly composed herself. A captured enemy spy, she declared, her voice steady despite her pallor. Excellent work. Brother, his testimony will surely confirm the treachery of your son's would-be bride. King Richard's expression remained stony. Officer Graves, tell the council how long you have served as liaison between Darkshore and the Duchess of Clearwater. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. The Duchess stepped forward, outrage on her face. What absurdity is this? I have never... 17 years, your Majesty, Graves interrupted, his voice carrying clearly over the Duchess's protests. Since the 3rd year of your reign, when Her Grace approached Darkshore with information about Golden Valley's military weaknesses. Lies, the Duchess hissed. This man is clearly scripted to defame me. The king raised his hand for silence. We have recovered your correspondence, sister, coded messages dating back nearly 2 decades, detailing everything from troop movements to royal security arrangements. He nodded to Lord Blackwood, who placed a stack of documents on the central table. Your personal seal appears on each one. William watched his aunt's face transform as she realized the depth of the trap. Her eyes darted to the exits, each guarded by armed soldiers. And there is more, the king continued, turning his gaze to Emily. The greatest deception of all concerns this young woman and her true identity, the royal midwife. An elderly woman who had served 3 generations of Golden Valley's monarchy stepped forward with a leather-bound journal. 23 years ago, I attended 2 royal births on the same night, she explained, her voice quavering with age but clear with conviction. Princess Vivian of Golden Valley and Queen Alara of Darkshore both delivered healthy baby girls. She opened the journal to a marked page. Each child bore a distinctive birthmark. Princess Catherine of Golden Valley had a crescent moon beneath her right collarbone. Princess Eleanor of Darkshore had a mark resembling their royal insignia on her left shoulder. William's mind raced to the birthmark he had seen on Amber's shoulder, the mark that had first raised his suspicions. During the christening celebration 3 months later, the midwife continued, a fire broke out in the royal nursery. In the chaos that followed, the babies were switched, a fact I discovered only after both had been removed from the palace. My concerns were dismissed as confusion from the smoke. And soon after, Princess Vivienne died under mysterious circumstances. The king stepped down from his throne, approaching Emily. Lady Emily Watson, would you show the council your birthmark? Emily hesitated only briefly before lowering the collar of her gown just enough to reveal a small crescent-shaped mark beneath her right collarbone. The birthmark of Golden Valley's royal house, the king announced. This woman is not Emily Watson, orphaned commoner. She is Princess Catherine Silverwind, daughter of my beloved sister Vivienne, rightful princess of Golden Valley. The council chamber exploded in astonished exclamations. William stared at Emily. No. Catherine. In disbelief, his betrothed was actually his cousin, a princess by birth. The Duchess of Clearwater's laugh cut through the chaos. A touching fairy tale, brother. But where is your proof beyond an old woman's journal and a convenient birthmark? The proof is in blood, Queen Elizabeth said softly, stepping forward. And in this, she produced a letter bearing the royal seal of Darkshore, a deathbed confession from Queen Alara, revealing her knowledge of the switch and her attempts to protect both children from those who sought to use them for political advantage, including you. Sister-in-law, the Duchess sneered. A convenient letter appearing just when needed. Forgery is such a common crime these days, which is why we have additional proof, the king replied calmly. Lord Blackwood, bring in the other prisoner. The side door opened again to reveal Amber Collins, her hands bound before her golden hair disheveled from imprisonment. Her eyes widened at the sight of Emily standing beside the king. Show the council your birthmark, Amber, King Richard commanded. Guards stepped forward, lowering the shoulder of Amber's gown to reveal the distinctive mark that matched Darkshore's royal insignia. Princess Eleanor of Darkshore, the king announced, raised as a commoner by Lady Collins, who was in my sister's employ, groomed to seduce my son and infiltrate our court. William looked between the 2 women, the beautiful Amber, whom he had loved but who had betrayed him, and Emily, whom he had initially rejected but who had risked everything to save his mother. This is absurd, the Duchess cried, desperation edging into her voice. You cannot possibly expect the council to believe. It was you, Emily interrupted, her voice quiet but firm. You who arranged the switch, who orchestrated Princess Vivienne's death, who has been slowly poisoning the queen. All to maintain your position of power and influence. The Duchess's eyes narrowed dangerously. You know nothing, girl. I know the properties of sweet sleep poison, Emily replied. The same poison found in your chambers during the investigation. I know the queen's symptoms improved dramatically when you were no longer permitted to bring her tea. And I know the taste of truth when I hear it. Something you seem unfamiliar with. A slow applause came from the king. Well said, niece. He turned to the royal guards. Arrest the Duchess of Clearwater for high treason, conspiracy, attempted regicide, and the murder of Princess Vivienne. As the guards moved toward her, the Duchess reached suddenly into her sleeve, producing a small dagger. Before anyone could react, she lunged at Emily, blade extended. William moved without thinking, throwing himself between them. The dagger sliced across his arm as he pushed Emily to safety. Guards swarmed the Duchess, disarming and restraining her as she screamed accusations and threats. "Take her to the secure cells," the king ordered grimly, "and post triple guards." As the Duchess was dragged away, William turned to Emily, who was staring at the blood seeping through his sleeve with horror. "You're injured," she whispered, already reaching for her ever-present satchel of remedies. "It's nothing," he assured her, though he winced as she pulled back the torn fabric to examine the wound. A small price to pay. Emily worked quickly, applying a salve and wrapping the cut with practiced efficiency. "That was foolish," she scolded gently. "She could have killed you. She was aiming for you," William pointed out. "I couldn't let that happen. Not to my cousin, or my betrothed, or whatever you are now." A hint of a smile touched Emily's lips. "I'm still me, though I admit I'm not entirely sure who that is anymore." The king approached them, his face solemn. "The betrothal arrangement was made before we confirmed Catherine's identity," he said. "Given the circumstances, you both would be within your rights to request its dissolution." William looked at Emily, Catherine, and saw her in a new light. Not just the plain, sturdy woman he had initially dismissed, but a brave, intelligent, compassionate person who had risked everything to save his family. Royal blood or not, she possessed a nobility of character that far outshone her newfound title. "I would like some time," William said carefully, "to know my cousin properly, without deception or court intrigue between us." He met Emily's eyes. "If she's willing," Emily nodded, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "I would like that very much." The king smiled, looking truly at peace for the first time in months. "Then it shall be so. Tonight we begin anew, with truth, justice, and perhaps, in time, forgiveness." As the council session formally adjourned, William offered Emily his uninjured arm. Together they walked from the chamber, leaving behind schemes and falsehoods, stepping toward a future neither could have imagined just days before. 2 weeks passed in relative calm after the dramatic council session. The Duchess of Clearwater remained imprisoned in the secure cells beneath the eastern tower, refusing food from anyone but her personal maid, the only servant still loyal to her. Amber Collins and her adoptive mother were kept under house arrest in a guarded wing of the palace, while diplomatic communications with Darkshore determined their fate. Meanwhile, Emily, still uncomfortable with the name Catherine, struggled to adjust to her new royal status. Servants who had once ignored her now bowed deeply as she passed. Courtiers who had mocked her figure in commoner ways now sought her favor with practiced flattery. The abrupt change left her feeling adrift, uncertain of her place in a world suddenly transformed. Only in the royal gardens did she find peace, continuing to tend the herbs that had been her lifeline for so many years. It was there William found her one crisp autumn morning, kneeling in the soil, her expensive new gown already smudged with dirt. "The royal gardeners would have a fit if they saw a princess doing their work," he said, smiling as he approached. Emily looked up, brushing a strand of hair from her face and leaving a streak of soil on her cheek. "Princess or not, the rosemary won't trim itself." She rose, brushing off her skirts. "How is your arm?" "Fully healed, thanks to your ministrations." William showed her the thin pink scar where his aunt's dagger had sliced him. "Father says you have your mother's touch with medicines, apparently. Princess Vivian was quite accomplished in herbal lore." "So I've been told," Emily sighed. "It's strange having people tell me about a mother I never knew, a heritage I never suspected." William studied her face. "Do you miss your old life?" "Parts of it," she admitted. "The simplicity, the freedom to move unnoticed, the certainty of who I was." She gestured to her dirt-stained hands. "A healer's identity is in her hands. Her knowledge. What is a princess's identity but her blood and title? Perhaps it's both," William suggested. "The blood that flows in your veins, and the choices you make with your hands." He offered her his arm. "Walk with me. Father has announced a celebration feast tonight to officially introduce you to the kingdom." Emily accepted his arm, allowing him to guide her through the garden paths. Over the past fortnight, they had developed a tentative friendship, cautiously learning about each other without the pressure of their arranged marriage hanging over them. "Have you spoken with Amber?" Emily asked softly. William's expression tightened. Once, she maintains that her feelings for me were genuine, despite her mission. And do you believe her? I don't know what to believe anymore, he admitted. For years I thought I knew her heart, only to discover it was all a performance. Not all. Perhaps, Emily said gently, we can serve multiple masters, duty to country, duty to family, and still have room for genuine feeling. William looked at her curiously. You defend her. I understand her, Emily clarified. We both lived lives not of our choosing, shaped by decisions made when we were infants. The difference is, I was raised with love by someone who wanted the best for me. Her path was one of obligation and manipulation. They had reached the palace's eastern terrace, which overlooked the city below. Golden Valley spread before them, bathed in autumn sunlight, its name made literal by the golden hues of changing leaves. Sometimes I wonder, William said after a moment, if we had met differently, without arrangements or deceptions, what might have happened between us. Emily felt heat rise to her cheeks. Well, you certainly wouldn't have given me a second glance. I'd have been the plain, plump lady in the corner, while you danced with the kingdom's beauties. William turned to face her fully. Is that how you still see yourself, even now? A title doesn't change one's appearance, she said pragmatically. No, but perhaps it changes how others perceive it. His voice softened. These past weeks, watching you, your kindness to the servants, your continued care for the sick in the lower city, your patience with my mother's endless etiquette lessons, I've seen a beauty that has nothing to do with conventional standards. Emily looked away, uncomfortable with his intensity. The feast tonight, she said, changing the subject. Will there be dancing? I'm afraid Princess Catherine may have inherited her cousin's left feet. William laughed, accepting her deflection. Then we shall stumble together and call it a royal prerogative. The great hall blazed with light, hundreds of candles illuminating the massive space where the kingdom's nobility had gathered to celebrate the miraculous return of Princess Catherine. Long tables groaned under the weight of elaborate dishes. Wine flowed freely, and musicians played cheerful melodies as courtiers danced. Emily sat at the high table between the king and William, wearing a gown of deep green velvet that complemented her auburn hair, which had been arranged in an elegant style befitting her station. Queen Elizabeth had personally overseen her preparation, showing a motherly concern that brought tears to Emily's eyes. You look lovely, dear, the queen whispered, leaning across William. The whole court is enchanted. Emily smiled, though her stomach churned with nervousness. They're more likely discussing my mysterious resurrection from common orphan to lost princess. Let them talk, William said, raising his goblet. It gives them something to do besides plot against each other. King Richard stood, raising his own goblet, and the hall fell silent. Friends, nobles, honored guests, tonight we celebrate a miracle. After 23 years, my beloved sister's daughter has returned to us. He gestured to Emily. Princess Catherine Silverwind of Golden Valley. The assembly raised their glasses in a thunderous toast. Emily acknowledged them with a gentle nod, still uncomfortable with the attention. In 1 month's time, the king continued, we shall have a formal coronation ceremony to officially recognize her royal status, and at that time, he paused, glancing meaningfully at William. Perhaps other announcements may be made as well. William shifted uncomfortably beside her, and Emily felt a similar discomfort, despite their growing friendship. Neither had spoken of reviving their betrothal. The king's hint hung awkwardly between them as the toasts concluded and the feast resumed. As the evening progressed, Emily found herself approached by countless nobles eager to claim acquaintance with the newly discovered princess. She navigated the conversations as best she could, grateful for the queen's etiquette lessons. During a brief lull, she slipped away to a quiet alcove, needing a moment's respite from the overwhelming attention. From her secluded vantage point, she watched William dancing with a nobleman's daughter, his natural grace evident despite his earlier self-deprecation. He moves well for someone who claims to have left feet, came a familiar voice from the shadows. Emily turned to find Amber Collins standing behind her, no longer in restraints, but clearly under guard, as 2 royal soldiers stood at a discreet distance. The king granted me permission to attend tonight, Amber explained, noting Emily's surprise. 1 last taste of court life before I'm sent back to Darkshore. "I'm sorry," Emily said sincerely. Amber laughed bitterly. "Are you? You have everything now. Title, wealth, family, and William's growing affection. None of which I sought," Emily reminded her. "Just as you didn't choose your path." A flash of genuine emotion crossed Amber's beautiful face. "No, but I embraced it willingly enough." "Power is seductive." She looked toward William. "As is he. Did you ever truly care for him?" Emily asked quietly. "Yes," Amber admitted after a pause. "More than was wise for my mission. It would have been easier if he'd been cruel or stupid." She studied Emily thoughtfully. "Take care of him. He deserves someone who sees his true worth, not just his crown." Before Emily could respond, a commotion erupted near the high table. The king's cupbearer had collapsed, convulsing violently on the floor. Guards rushed forward as panic spread through the hall. "Poison!" someone shouted. Emily pushed through the crowd, her healer's instincts taking over. The man was foaming at the mouth. His eyes rolled back. "Don't touch the wine," she commanded, recognizing the symptoms immediately. She knelt beside him, checking his pulse. "It's quicksilver poison, extremely potent." William appeared at her side. "The king, my mother. The king hasn't drunk from his cup yet," a guard reported. The cupbearer tasted it first, as is customary. "Clear the hall," William ordered. "Guards at every exit. No one leaves until we determine how the poison entered the wine." As the hall erupted in controlled chaos, Emily noticed something unusual. Amber was smiling, her eyes fixed on the royal family's untouched goblets. When she caught Emily watching her, the smile vanished, replaced by carefully constructed concern. Emily moved swiftly to the royal table, examining the wine service. Each goblet had been filled from the same decanter, yet only the king's cupbearer had fallen ill. She sniffed each cup carefully, detecting a faint, distinctive odor from the king's, the queen's, and William's, but not from her own. "The cups themselves are poisoned," she realized aloud. "Not the wine, a coating inside the royal goblets that activates when liquid touches it." She turned to William, who had access to these cups before the feast. William's expression darkened with understanding. "They were polished today by my aunt's personal maid, the only servant still loyal to her." Guards were dispatched immediately to find the maid, but Emily's attention was drawn back to Amber, who was slowly backing toward a side exit, her guards distracted by the commotion. "William," Emily warned. Pointing, Amber saw that she'd been noticed and abandoned all pretense. Bolting for the door, guards moved to intercept her, but she produced a small vial from her sleeve, threatening to smash it on the floor. "Nightshade extract," she shouted. "Enough to kill everyone in this room if vaporized." The guards hesitated, creating a standoff. William stepped forward cautiously. "Amber, don't do this. There's no escape." "There's always escape for those willing to pay the price," Amber replied, her composure cracking to reveal the desperate woman beneath. The Duchess planned well, if she couldn't rule Golden Valley. No one would. Emily moved slowly around the periphery of the confrontation, calculating distances and angles. As a child, she had learned to throw her dagger with precision, to hunt small game during lean times. Now, that skill might save hundreds of lives. "You were never meant to be a sacrificial pawn," Emily called, drawing Amber's attention away from William. "The Duchess used you just as she used everyone else." Amber's hand trembled on the vial. "At least I'll be remembered. The princess who brought down a kingdom." In one fluid motion, Emily drew her small dinner knife and threw it with perfect accuracy. The blade struck Amber's hand, causing her to drop the vial. William lunged forward, catching it before it could shatter on the stone floor. Guards swarmed Amber, who fought with unexpected ferocity before being subdued as they dragged her away. Her eyes locked with Emily's, a mixture of hatred and reluctant respect in their blue depths. The hall remained in shock, nobles and servants alike staring at Emily with new appreciation. "That," William said quietly as he returned to her side, deadly vial now secured by the royal alchemist, "was not a skill I expected from a princess." Emily smiled wryly. Perhaps there are advantages to a common upbringing after all. A month after the poisoning attempt, Golden Valley prepared for a momentous day, the official coronation of Princess Catherine, and, to the surprise of many, the king's announcement of his intention to abdicate in favor of William. The palace buzzed with activity as servants prepared the great hall for the ceremony, hanging tapestries depicting the kingdom's history and arranging thousands of fresh flowers from the royal gardens. In her chambers, Emily, now mostly accustomed to being addressed as Catherine, stood patiently as attendants made final adjustments to her coronation gown. The dress was a masterpiece of silver silk embroidered with golden threads, symbolizing her place in the Silverwind dynasty. "You look every inch a princess," Queen Elizabeth said warmly, entering the room with a velvet-lined box. "Your mother would be so proud," Emily smiled, though her stomach fluttered with nerves. "I still feel like an imposter sometimes." "That will pass," the Queen assured her. "In time, this life will feel as natural as your old one." She opened the box to reveal a delicate silver tiara set with moonstones. This was Vivian's. It's fitting that her daughter should wear it today. As the Queen placed the tiara on Emily's head, a soft knock sounded at the door. William entered, resplendent in formal attire, his ceremonial cape bearing the golden crest of the heir apparent. "May I have a moment alone with the princess?" he asked. The Queen exchanged knowing glances with the attendants as they withdrew, leaving the cousins in private. William stared at Emily, momentarily speechless. "You look magnificent." "As do you," she replied, feeling a blush warm her cheeks. "Are you nervous about the abdication announcement?" "Terrified," he admitted with a rueful smile. "But father insists the time is right. His illness may have been exaggerated for strategic purposes, but his desire to step down is genuine. He wants to spend his remaining years with mother, away from the burdens of rule." Emily nodded understanding. "You'll make a fine king, William." "Perhaps," he said. "With the right queen beside me." He stepped closer. "That's what I wanted to speak with you about, before the ceremony." Emily's heart quickened. Over the past month, their friendship had deepened into something more, though neither had spoken openly of their feelings. "Our betrothal was arranged without our consent," William continued. "Based on my father's suspicions about your identity, now that the truth is known, that arrangement is technically void." "Yes, I understand," Emily said, trying to mask her disappointment. "So I would like to propose a new arrangement." To her astonishment, William dropped to one knee before her, taking her hand in his, not as a prince to a princess, but as a man who has grown to admire and cherish the remarkable woman before him. Emily stared at him, scarcely believing what was happening. "Catherine Emily Silverwind," William said, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. "Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Not because our fathers arranged it, but because we choose each other freely." Tears blurred Emily's vision. "Are you certain you could have any woman in the kingdom? I want the one who saved my mother's life, who risked everything to uncover the truth, who throws dinner knives with alarming accuracy," he said with a smile. "The one who sees me as William, not just as the crown prince." Emily squeezed his hand. "Then yes, William, I choose you freely, with all my heart." William rose, his face alight with joy, and pulled her into a tender kiss, their first. A discreet cough from the doorway interrupted them. Lord Blackwood stood there, looking apologetic. "Forgive me, your highnesses, but the ceremony is about to begin." The great hall had never looked more splendid. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns across the assembled nobility. Representatives from every province stood at attention, along with ambassadors from neighboring kingdoms, including, significantly, a delegation from Darkshore, sent to re-establish diplomatic relations. King Richard and Queen Elizabeth sat on their thrones as Emily and William entered from opposite sides of the hall. Emily's gaze swept the crowd, noting the many faces that had once looked at her with disdain, now upturned in respect and curiosity. As she reached the dais, the king rose, his voice strong as he addressed the gathering. "People of Golden Valley, today marks a new chapter in our kingdom's history. We welcome home Princess Catherine Silverwind, daughter of my beloved sister Vivian, rightful princess of our realm." Cheers echoed through the hall as Emily knelt before the king. He placed a ceremonial circlet of office on her head, officially recognizing her royal status. "Rise, Princess Catherine of House Silverwind, Royal Lady of Golden Valley." Emily stood, turning to face the crowd as their new princess. The applause was thunderous, genuine in its enthusiasm despite the surprising circumstances of her revelation. When the cheers subsided, the king raised his hand for silence. "I have one more proclamation. After 30 years on the throne, I have decided to pass the crown to the next generation." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the assembly, though the news had been carefully leaked to prepare the court. "In 1 month's time, I shall abdicate in favor of my son, Crown Prince William, who has proven himself worthy in ways I could never have anticipated." The king's gaze moved to Emily, then back to William. "And I am pleased to announce that our kingdom will not face this transition alone." William stepped forward, taking Emily's hand. "With the blessing of the king and queen, Princess Catherine has consented to become my wife. We shall rule Golden Valley together, united by choice rather than arrangement." The hall erupted once more, the nobility stamping and cheering at this unexpected but welcome development. The union promised stability in a time of transition, while the romantic nature of their courtship, carefully crafted for public consumption, captured the imagination of the people. As the celebration continued with a grand feast, Emily found a moment to slip away to a quiet balcony. The journey from commoner to princess to future queen still felt surreal. Like a story from one of her childhood books, William joined her, offering a cup of spiced wine. "Having second thoughts," he teased gently. "Gathering my thoughts," she corrected. "It's been quite a transformation. For both of us," he agreed. "I was a rather poor excuse for a prince when we first met." Emily laughed. "You were terrible, arrogant, dismissive, while you were stubborn and secretive," he countered good-naturedly. "A perfect match," she concluded, raising her cup in a private toast. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun begin its descent behind the mountains. The same mountains Emily had crossed to save the queen, unknowingly changing the course of the kingdom. "There's still the matter of your aunt's punishment to decide," Emily said after a while. "And Amber's fate." William nodded soberly. "Father leaves those decisions to us, our first acts of royal judgment." "I've been thinking about that," Emily said carefully. "Traditional justice would demand execution for treason." "But," William prompted, noting her hesitation, "but perhaps we could demonstrate a different kind of strength. The Duchess clearly cannot remain in Golden Valley, but there are remote monasteries where she might serve out her days in contemplation of her crimes. And Amber," Emily considered, "she is Darkshore's true princess. Returning her to her kingdom could be the foundation for a peace that has eluded our nations for generations. The very peace our mothers hope to achieve through us." William studied her with admiration. Mercy as diplomacy. A controversial approach. "The easy path is rarely the wisest one," Emily said, echoing something her adoptive mother had often told her. "Then we are agreed," William decided. "Our reign will begin with healing rather than further bloodshed." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You'll make a remarkable queen, Catherine." Emily smiled at the use of her birth name, which was becoming less foreign to her ears. "Perhaps, but I'll always keep a bit of Emily with me. Her knowledge of herbs, her care for the common people, her practical approach to problems. I would have it no other way," William assured her. "It is Emily the healer I fell in love with, even as I pledged my life to Catherine the Princess." As twilight settled over Golden Valley, they returned to the great hall hand in hand. The kingdom had weathered conspiracy and betrayal, but emerged stronger for it. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But for tonight, they celebrated not just the restoration of a lost princess, but the promise of a future built on truth rather than deception, on choice rather than obligation. And as Emily caught the queen's knowing smile across the crowded hall, she felt the final pieces of her fragmented identity settling into place, not erasing who she had been, but enhancing who she was becoming.